I think the family as a unit of care, the patient and family together as a unit of palliative care, is really at the heart of modern palliative care provision. So really a diagnosis, a life-threatening illness diagnosis reverberates to the entire family unit, so it impacts upon all family members and significant others. And I think with the inception of the modern hospice movement, it was quite explicit that palliative care should focus on supporting family caregivers as well as the patient. From the outset, one of the sort of key aspects of palliative care is to make it clear to the family that palliative care is to support them as well as the patient. I think too often that's not made explicit, and therefore family members are not aware of what resources are available to them, and they're often, too scared perhaps to ask for help themselves. So I think it's essential that palliative care providers make it quite clear from the outset that the support they provide is not only for the person who's confronting the end of their life, but also for their family as well. One of the core aspects is preparation for the role. So for most family caregivers, it'll be their first experience with looking after somebody who's facing the end of their life. They won't have been exposed to something like this before, so typically they're unprepared. They need information and guidance. For many family members, they'll be involved in a number of tasks associated with caregiving, particularly in the home setting. And those tasks might include things like administration of drugs, taking their relative to appointments and so forth. And sometimes the tasks are quite onerous and require training and support. For example, giving morphine, medications of that ilk require support for the family caregivers to train them in how to administer those medications and to demystify some of the misconceptions about opioids. For many healthcare professionals, actually having that time to talk with families has implications in terms of their workload and so forth. So, for example, in a home care setting, a nurse may go and visit a patient and family and sit in their lounge room and ask the patient how they're going and so forth, make sure their symptoms are managed, that the psychosocial care is provided and spiritual care and so forth, and say to the family member, and how are you going? And they might say, I'm fine, thank you. And then as the healthcare professional leaves the house, occasionally a family member might say, I'll just follow you out. And it's when they have time with that particular healthcare professional one-on-one that they really offload and that their issues are raised. So one of the complexities of family caregiver support is actually making sure that healthcare professionals give that one-on-one time, because for many family members they may not feel comfortable in raising their issues and their concerns in front of the patient. I think too it's important to acknowledge that family caregiving shouldn't be pathologised, that if we had a room of 50 family caregivers and we sort of said, look, we acknowledge that this experience must be extremely challenging for you, but can you see something at all positive in it? Most family caregivers could actually see something positive. For example, they might say, well, it's helped me become closer to my relative. I know that she wants to be home and I'm looking after her at home, and I know that's incredibly important to her. It helps them think about questions of their own issues around mortality and so forth. So most family caregivers can actually recognise something favourable in the experience. But I think the concern arises when the caregivers can't. I think they're the group that often we need to make sure we have extra support and try and unearth what's going on for that particular family caregiver, because we might need to add in additional resources and so forth. Often the involvement of healthcare professionals might only be for a short period of time, so they need to be highly skilled in empathy, how to actually establish a relationship very quickly, because I think the importance of trust between the family caregiver and the healthcare professional is incredibly important. And if that trust is there, they feel like they can depend on that particular healthcare professional, they can rely on them for accurate information and so forth, then I think that notion of permission giving is much easier, and family caregivers will digest that much more readily. And I think that's particularly important around the time of death as well, giving permission for what you can and can't do, when somebody's actually dying, or indeed when they have died, just after they've died as well. So permission for involving children and so forth. It's okay to keep talking to your relative even though they're at the moment not responsive and so forth. So that seems to be quite important for many family caregivers, that they have that affirmation that what they're doing is okay, and helps them in accepting what's on the horizon, or in fact what's happening to them at that particular point in time. One of the problems we have in contemporary palliative care is this notion that we should be providing support for the entire family. And I think in reality that's often complex and very difficult. So from my perspective, I would be advocating that where resources are limited, that the focus of support goes to the primary family caregiver, and that should be that the patient identifies as the most significant person in their life. And ideally that person is accepting of that particular responsibility. And it may not always be the next of kin, it could actually be the next door neighbour. But I think asking the patient to identify who they see to be the main support person, getting their permission to discuss medical issues and so forth. And then where resources are available, extending that support to the entire family, obviously to children and so forth, is so important. But I think we do need to recognise, with resources strained in many countries in terms of healthcare support, that the focus at least should be on the primary family caregiver.